Hello, welcome. Happy to be with you, as always. Sorry about that, it was a little bit delayed there. Hopefully you can hear me well, and that you can hear the keyboard well. I think so. Hope you're all doing well. Let me just give you a little welcome. Please say hello and feel free to ask a question. Okay. Hi, sweetie. Alrighty. I like music. Welcome. Hey. Today we are doing Serum. I'm actually super stoked about this. Yeah. For anyone that doesn't know, Serum is a, let me just put my face big. Here we go. Serum is one of the most popular synthesizers in the world, digital synths, that is, software synths, I should say. And I worked as a professional Serum sound designer for a couple of years some time ago. And so I spent a lot of time with it all day, every day, making sounds of all different types and many different genres. So I learned a lot about the thing, and hoping to share some tips with you today. We'll see how it goes. I'm totally open to questions if you guys have any. Thomas, welcome. Kim, welcome. Nice. So yeah, please, at any time, feel free to ask a question. Otherwise, I'm just going to start going through some things. This is not going to be like a super beginner intro thing. I'm going to assume a little bit of knowledge, a little bit of experience, you know, making music on the computer using synths maybe. I'll go over the basics real quick once we open up Serum. But if someone would like me to do a actual like basics of Serum video, I could do that. Tip 1, get Serum. Okay, that's actually totally true. Yeah, so there's of course, you can do so much with built-in synths that come with your DAW or whatever. Like in Studio One, we have MyType, but there's also limitations because, of course, that the company is needing to make an entire DAW, an entire app for making music. They don't have time to also make the best synth ever. I mean, maybe, but it hasn't happened yet. So people like Steve Duda, who made Serum, who's an amazing guy. I mean, wow, just check him out on YouTube or read his forum posts or whatever. It's wonderful to get some insight into what went into Serum and to see the way he works with his community. It's actually amazing. So props to Steve Duda. So yes, let's get into it. I'm gonna get my face out of the way here. Nick, welcome. Just in time. Okay, so this is the main interface, and you guys, I have no idea who here actually owns Serum or not. I'm gonna assume you do, or at least you've seen it before. We're going to talk about a bunch of different stuff as we go through, but if you've never seen it before, here it is. If you want to see it look even cooler, well, we can do that. I don't actually use it on this skin for some reason, but ooh. It seems like I should, though. When I look at it, I feel like this feels right. But I guess I'm so familiar with the original one, I'm going to stick with it for now, just so it doesn't confuse me. Yeah, I know. It looks pretty cool. One sec. So what I'm going to try to do is make some sounds, and that's it. No, I'm going to make some sounds. We're going to try to make some music with the sounds and see what happens. Yeah, I'm going to run through basically my workflow. Looked very tropical. Yeah, exactly. In terms of like, after doing those hundreds and hundreds of sounds, what did I end up learning about how to structure my attention moving through the plugin? And I think this will also apply to a lot of other synth plugins as well, depending on how they're structured. But yeah, hopefully it'll be helpful for you. So the first thing is initialize. Let me say something to that first. In the menu here, we can initialize the whole plugin, init preset, doop, and now everything just goes to like straight saw wave, buzz your ear off kind of situation. And that's cool. I always want to start initialized myself, but this default saw waveform is like super not useful. Okay, it's useful in certain situations, but I would like to have some more options here. So you're going to follow along a massive X, have the init open. Okay. So I like to set up a kind of template, if I can, in my synth. Hey, Bill, welcome. And so the way that you can do that inside of Serum is just select all the options that you want. For instance, you could set your oscillators to be something, you could set your effects to be something, you can set your everything, and you just save that as a patch and you just put it in here. That was, I mean, maybe that's changed by now, but that's the way I've had to do it. So like starting point, for instance, I click this and it has things set up the way I want. I've got an LFO sloped in a certain way. I've got these two oscillators set to basic shapes. We'll talk about that stuff in a minute. But that's my first point, is like with anything, you can make a template. And if you have a template, it just cuts down on the time it takes to do stuff. Frank, welcome. We all like doing stuff, right? Especially when it comes to synths. Okay. I see one of my chats is frozen. Give me 1 sec here. I'm not getting your updated messages. Let me do this. Do this. Hey, it's the chat on the stream. Okay. And if you're new, please say hello. I'm happy to chat with you. And welcome. So my workflow. Basically, we're going to talk about the basics, basically the basics of synthesis real fast, and then we're just going to get into it. So for anyone that's unaware, synthesis in general, we're using synths, basically works with some sort of tone generation situation, like something, an aspect of the synth that actually makes the sound. We call that the oscillator, and it's going to oscillate some kind of waveform. And this is a picture, a kind of representation of the waveform of a sort. I'm not going to get into the specifics of that. I've covered it elsewhere. And you can get different types of waveforms that sound different, of course. Then from there, this waveform is sent into a variety of controllers that alter the sound in various ways. Alter its volume, alter its frequency content, alter its reverb, alter its pitch, alter its everything. There's just so much you can do with that. Sebastian, morning. First time being here since I live in Sweden, and it's 4:39 a.m. Wow, okay, welcome. Great to have you here. You're up at 4:39. That's amazing. Okay, so that being said, I'm not going to cover like exactly how to go through and do everything. I'm going to assume a little bit of knowledge, and if you don't, there's so many tutorials for Serum on everywhere. Written tutorials, video tutorials, read the manual, like actually. When I first got into Serum, I just opened the manual, which is in here. Can't remember exactly. Here it is, read the manual. You just click this and you just read it from the front to the back. It takes like a day. Honestly, that's what I did. It just opened my mind to all of the possibilities that are even going on in here before I mean, you probably want to have some degree of experience with a synth before you do that, but it's really, really helpful because there's so much stuff that Serum can do that we're not even going to touch on today. Like really, it's crazy deep. Crazy deep, bro. Here we go. It's 4:40 a.m. too. Wow. You guys are amazing. Okay, so we have our template here. And let's start with some kind of sound. I started with a key sound last time. And I think key sounds are nice to start with, or at least sounds that you can play chords with because they're so practical and versatile. So that's what I'm going to work with today. We're going to start with making some kind of key sound, and we're going to try to use a few of the unique aspects of Serum to do it. So to begin with, I'm just going to start with one oscillator, and we're going to work this time with some kind of waveform. Now, the important thing, of course, about Serum is that it's a wavetable synth. So when you open this, you've got all of these wavetables, which, if you look at their 3D view, actually are a whole series of 256 individual waveforms that blend together and right, change over time. So you can get a lot of amazing effects that way. Like, that's kind of crazy, actually, the amount of things you can do. But we're going to start super simple. And honestly, this is the way that I use this thing most of the time. Stan, welcome. Hey. So I'm always trying to keep things as simple for myself as possible when I'm doing this kind of complicated stuff like making synths. Unless I have to use a wavetable, I'm not going to. I know that that's what Serum's all about, and that's great. Of course, I can do a lot of cool stuff with that. But if I can accomplish what I want to accomplish with the basic shapes, saw, wave, square, wave, sine, wave, blah, 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 that for me is gold because it makes things much easier for me to think about in general and not have to get into, all the specifics of cleaning up waveforms if I don't want it or limiting the range or whatever. There's a lot of things that can be done that we won't quite be touching on today. Suffice it to say that I like to start basic. If I can't achieve it with basic shapes, which are found in analog basic shapes, then I'll move on to doing something with a wavetable, massive, crazy, cool thing. Sometimes I stay up until 4:40 a.m., but I never wake up that early. Yeah, that's probably like me. I wouldn't say I stay up that late either. I don't know if I'm ever awake at 4:40 a.m., so props to you guys, especially for learning Serum. Jeez. Okay, so let's start with some basic sounds. We're going to go with, I feel like a saw wave today. And so we're going to create a kind of key sound, and we're going to think about this from a workflow perspective in terms of where do you even begin and how do you get to a desired result? And this is something you've probably heard me say a few times if you've watched any of these streams or listened to me talk about synthesis before, which is that just going willy-nilly can, as in like just turning knobs randomly until something cool happens, can work, but usually not. Usually you have to have a purpose behind your knob twisting, because some of the effects you can achieve require you to kind of like reverse engineer what you're thinking about or what you're hearing. And it takes like several steps to achieve the sound. So just by twisting random knobs, often you don't achieve particular or interesting sounds, just because the most interesting stuff is usually a little bit difficult to make because there's so many moving parts inside of it. So it's easier to have a sound in mind ahead of time and reverse engineer or get, kind of see the steps in reverse and then follow them forward to get to that point. That's kind of my way of working anyway. And ways to help you decide how to imagine, ways to develop the idea you're going for is asking yourself what's needed in the song. So in this case, we don't have a song. So anything's needed. All I know is right now I need to play some chords. Like that's what's needed in my mind. So I start thinking about what do I want those chords to sound like. Literally, I can make noises with my mouth, or I can just imagine or do whatever. So long as I start to get an idea, like a guiding light that will let me be able to move a knob and say yes or no. That's kind of the key. That if I don't have a mental image, so to speak, a sonic image of what I'm going towards, I never know if when I twist a knob if that's helping me or not. I can just say, oh, sounds kind of cool, that sounds kind of cool. But if I have this vision, I can twist, say that's closer to my vision or not, right? So it's helpful to have that. Okay. Bought Musical Warp Drive a couple of days ago and I learned a ton. Oh, wow, that's great, Sebastian. Oh, I forgot to mention that. If you guys want to check out the links in the description, there's some links for courses I have there on music theory and composition, as well as a Discord link in there if you want to chat music with me, which is always a blast. All right, so into the keys. So the first thing is the main essence of the sound works in a combination of oscillators, filter, and volume envelope, basically, and filter envelope all together. Sometimes you can separate them, but a lot of times they need to be done all at once because you can't really tell what you're doing if only one of them is done and you're imagining the other one. I'll show you what I mean. So I want a sound that decays. I want a sound that starts dark and then gets bright and then gets dark again. And I want it to have a kind of attack on it. These are things I can hear in my mind already. Like I'm imagining the sound of chords playing or of arpeggios playing or whatever, and I have some feeling of what I want that to be, almost a tonal characteristic of the sound. So knowing those things, I can start to plan my route. And as far as the workflow goes, I have a constant back and forth process between knobs that affect the waveform itself, change its sound, the filter, and my envelope down here. Unfortunately, at least I can't work this way of straight just this, then just this, then just this, then it doesn't quite work that way because everything meshes together. There are some elements I leave till last, as in usually I try to get everything on this page dialed in perfectly before I move on to effects, unless the effects are completely essential to the sound, which happens. But there's so much to be done on here already, and in my way of working, this might not be the way you want to do it. I'm not sure. I have to try everything. If I'm making a sound, I have to basically twist every single knob with every single option forward and back just to see did it make it better or not, because I want to end up with the absolute best result I can get, and I want to make sure when I get there that I did all that I could to achieve that result. So rather than just saying, oh, it's pretty good, I'll just leave all these knobs alone. No, I'm going to go through every single thing in here, literally. And so full on, full off, middle, no. Next one, full on, full, like this, until I've just like exhausted the thing. Kind of sounds exhausting, but it's not really, not for me anyway. When I'm making synths and I'm in that mode, it's a blast. Tea break. Okay, so here's our beautiful sound so far. And the first thing we're going to do is just dull the sound because it's annoying for me to listen to. So I'm just going to put a filter on it, literally just for that purpose. I'm going to start shaping the volume curve of the sound. I know I want an attack, right? So I need to leave this instantaneous basically. And then I want a decay, meaning I want the sound to last, but decay slowly. If you've seen my other videos on synthesis on the MIDI synth inside of Studio One, I talked all about this curve situation. The more this is curved, the smoother it fades into silence, basically. The smoother it fades, the more realistic it sounds. Do you want realism? I don't know. That's up to you. I usually do. So I'm just going to now tune the length of my decay, which is going to tell me how long the sound lasts for. So short decay, long decay. So I'm in my mind, how do I decide about this? Basically, usually it'll be, what's the tempo of the song? What is the synth going to be playing? Do I want to hear the notes decaying or not? As in, maybe in the bridge of the song, the chords will hold for like 2 bars and you can get a long decay. But maybe that's never going to happen. Maybe in the part I'm writing, the notes only go da, 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 something like this. And that like little beat long kind of quarter note I have there for the chord, I have to make a decision. Do I want to hear a volume fade during that note, or do I want it to feel consistent and solid during that note? That's going to basically tell me how long to set this decay for, right? So in this case, if we're going to go over those sort of short sustained chords, I need to bring this down to the point where there's even a perceivable drop in volume, because right now, it sounds pretty much solid, even though you can see it dropping here. So if I bring this in, now you can start to perceive a change in volume. Go more. I need this. I just got Serum and don't know how to use it. Well, welcome. You made it to the right place. I'm not going over like super basics here, so if you don't know your basics of synthesis in general, you might still be a bit lost, but you'll pick up some stuff by checking it out. So hope you enjoy. Okay, so I like this. It decays pretty fast, right? But that's what I want. I want the decay to be perceivable in the length of notes I'm going to be playing. I don't actually know what kind of beat I'm going to make yet. I'm just hypothesizing. I'm going to play these kind of short-ish notes, quarter note length. So we've got this movement happening, and now I want to have this movement happening. I actually want the filter to follow the shape of the volume itself, starting bright and getting darker. Now check this out. Here's an interesting thing about Serum in general. If I pull this envelope, which is how you modulate anything in Serum, you grab a controller and you literally just drag the thing onto any control you need to change, and the blue will show you what's going to happen to it. However, this is currently bidirectional, meaning this white line in the middle is dividing a positive and a negative side. And I want it to be monodirectional. Like if I move this, you see what happens? I would rather have this kind of functionality. I've changed keyboards recently, so give me a second to figure out. Yeah, so holding Alt and Shift together, you can click, and you go from bidirectional to unidirectional. Monodirectional? Not sure. Now, this will behave in the way that the lowest point on this graph corresponds to the position of the white needle point here, basically. And the highest point on this graph corresponds to the highest point of the blue part here. So it will move from the highest point down to the needle point unless I pull it into a negative direction. And then it will move from the lowest point on this thing up to the needle point, basically. So what I'm going to do is just play a note. And right now, I'm listening for the darkest point I want to get to. Kind of like that. And then by pulling this up or down, I'm setting the highest point it's going to start at. So for this sound, I don't think I want any kind of spitty, this kind of at the start. So when I pull this down to about there. So now this graph is currently a picture of the way that the filter is going to move and a picture of the way the volume is going to move simultaneously. And it's them doing the exact same motion together that provides a kind of unity to the sound. That unity might be desirable, it might not be desirable. Sometimes you want your filter to close way faster than your volume does because that provides a cool effect as well, but that's not what we're doing today, not with this sound anyway. So we've got this kind of vibe happening now. Okay, from there, I'm going to start thinking about two things: filter controls and tone controls. Since the thing is already moving like I want, that's the most important thing for me to begin with. I need to get the motion of the volume and the filter to be correct so I can start tone shaping within those constraints, because I could make the coolest tone in the world only to filter it out later and it was pointless. So I want to get those things going so that I can then make decisions about my tone while the actual movement is happening, basically. So, making tonal changes. Two things we can do. We can have tonal changes done in the filter, and we can have tonal changes done in the oscillators. We're going to start with the oscillator thing. And we're just going to move through these controls. I'll give a brief description of what each of them does, and then we can move on to the next oscillator. So we have unison. This is basically duplicating the oscillator, running two instances of the oscillator rather than one, and it's going to detune them. So if I turn this up to 2, we have a picture of the two yellow lines like this. And then this is basically representing, right now on 1, there's only a single sound source, a single oscillator, and it's coming straight down the middle, mono. When you pull this up, you have 2 sound sources, and they are panned side to side like this. Then you have 3, and it's basically showing you exactly the relationship of them in the stereo field, as well as the volume. The center, like the height of the line, is the volume, so you can, we'll see in a second, change the relationship between the side ones to the center ones, and so on. So from here, let's say we have 2. When I play this note now, if you're wearing headphones, you're going to feel weird. So they're hard panned side to side, but they're detuned from one another, meaning the pitch has been changed slightly so that you're not getting exactly the same waveform in sync, in phase, which would ruin the stereo effect. So if I bring this detune all the way in, now you can probably, if you have stereo speakers or headphones, you're going to perceive the sound like jumping its location in the stereo field. This is just due to phase, the phase relationship between the two copies of the oscillator, whether they're in phase or out of phase or somewhere in between, causes the jumping of the thing around. And we'll understand this a bit more in just a second. So if I start to turn this detune knob up, I'm seeing the, listening to the pitches slowly shifting away from each other, getting more and more dissonant. Greg Chamberlain, you're a great teacher. I see you going far, Max. Wow, that's wonderful. Thanks, Greg. Appreciate that. Welcome. So this is a very important consideration. You might think, I would never want to use this, but actually there are some cool uses for detuning that we might even get into today. So this is going to set a couple of things. If I start to turn this up, listen to the effect of the sound. So you see that what 1 sounds like versus what 2 sounds like. 2 basically sounds like 1, but stereo. That is very important. If you want to create a sound from one oscillator that is clean, but is spread, you use 2 like this with very subtle detuning. That's how you get it almost to sound like you're hearing just one oscillator pure, but it's wide. As soon as you start to go more, you have to be careful because you can already hear at the same detuning setting. I'll switch back and forth. Here's 2 and 3. You hear the difference there? This one is subtly more chow, 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 kind of like wishy-washy sounding. And as we turn it up, we get more and more of that. Because we have more oscillators that are all detuned from one another, interacting and basically obscuring the pitch is essentially what's happening. And as you turn up the detune knob, you obscure the pitch more and more until you can't tell if there's even a pitch, a center pitch anymore. So the more oscillators I have, the lower I have to set my detune to get them to sound clean again. Versus at 2, I can be much higher up for the same effect. So adding oscillators creates thickness and washiness, but low numbers of oscillators, like 2, creates a clean, wide sound. So that's something to consider is, what do you need from your sound? In this case, I'm going to stick with this maybe for the time being. And then we start moving on to these other knobs. So the blend knob doesn't apply to when you have 2. If I put up to 3, this is going to change the relative volumes of the things, center versus sides. That's pretty easy to understand. These 2 knobs deal with phase, meaning the point at which you begin your cycle in the waveform. You know, are you beginning at the 0 crossing? Are you beginning at the top, at the bottom? Are you beginning at random places along the waveform? This is actually super important when it comes to sound design. These 2 knobs control this. This one says, are you basically starting at a random point in the phase? Fully random, same point every time. The yellow area shows you the random starting points that it will choose, right? In between this shaded zone is where the oscillator will begin, somewhere in there, randomly. So if I turn this down to none, now the oscillator always begins every instance of itself right there in the center at that 0 crossing. And let's listen. Notice that the tone is exactly the same every time I hit the key now. Let's turn this up a little bit. And it goes meow, 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 like a laser. But if I let the phase go random, now it sounds smoother and doesn't sound so lasery anymore. This occurs because when you start these things all at the same point, that is no randomness, they are in sync, in phase, but because they're all detuned, they suddenly go out of phase. But it does it in the exact same rate every time because they're starting in the same place every time. And that repeated quality makes the laser sound, basically, the pew, pew, pew sound, which might be what you want, usually not, though, depending on what you're trying to do. So in my case, I want to bring this up so that I'm starting at a different point in the waveform every time. This oscillator and this oscillator are both going to be starting at different points, which means you get basically a randomized phase relationship between the 2 of them all the time, which creates a smooth sound. Actually, that's the point. Let's bring this back down. Okay, so that's these top knobs. And then now these bottom ones, WT pause, that's wavetable position. That's just cycling me between the various states of the wavetable that I have. This basic shapes thing only has these 6 states or 7 states, and we're just using number 2. But if we had a wavetable that had 256 states, this would oscillate between them. And of course, you can modulate this thing to make all sorts of cool sounds. That's the whole point of it. Do I ever compress my synths? Yes, but it depends. The thing is that, are you using compression for creative effect, like artistic effect, or are you using it for utilitarian reasons? As in, normally you're going to compress an instrument in a utilitarian sense, like say a vocal or a guitar or a piano or whatever, because the performance you've recorded is more dynamic than you want, meaning sometimes it's too loud and sometimes it's too quiet. No matter where you try to put the fader, you can't find a perfect spot. Compression is the point in that situation. You're coming in to compress the dynamic range. The thing is, when you're using synths, we have control over every parameter. We have control over the distinct volume and velocity, basically, of every single note we play. So for whatever you call it, utilitarian reasons like that, you often don't need to compress synths unless you're going for a specific effect, which is the artistic point I mentioned earlier, that because we can control things on such a fine level that you can't do with an audio recording, usually the utilitarian reverb is not needed unless it's a special case, which we might encounter today. So in that case, you're just compressing for creative effect. That is a kind of tonal shaping of the sound using a compressor. And that's a whole different thing. And I definitely do that a lot, but it's not the utilitarian type of compression. So hopefully that answers your question. So WT pause can be, I mean, all these knobs can be automated, right? With like LFOs or envelopes, or I mean, it's just crazy. The velocity, the notes you're using to bring out front. Yes and no. Compression isn't going to necessarily bring something out front. It depends on many, many factors, whether something is brought out front or not. Compression for the tone shaping artistic effect can take a few different pathways, one resulting in shaping the volume of the thing over time, and one in terms of adding pressure or power to the sound. That is, reducing the dynamic range in such a way that the quiet elements of the sound are getting pushed up to equal volume as the loud elements of the sound, and you're putting a constraint on them, which causes a pressurized, powerful sound. So that's might be what you mean about bringing to the front. Like if you hypercompress a vocal, every little detail is going to be pushed right up like this, right? Because it's not, as soon as it drops in volume, it's pushing it up again. That's the effect of it anyway. Kind of explained it in reverse. But the point being that you get a very, almost, it would be overstrong if you like hyper-compressed it, but that will be in front of the whole mix in a sense because its volume never dips. Its volume always stays steady. So in that case, you're bringing it out front. Maybe we'll give it a shot today at some point. Okay, so then we have this. Now this is a very cool thing. You can find this in Massive as well and a bunch of other synths. This is bend modes, or warp modes, I should say. This is just ways to warp the waveform. So we can just start, like, a simple way to look at it is with the bend control. So if I spin this knob, we bend, literally bend the waveform, and it becomes smoother sounding because it's more like a sine wave. Right? So you could automate this. For instance, I could use this same envelope to automate this. Now, every time I hit, it's going to start over here and fade down to here. Right? We'll do the reverse bend. I'm just going to the next warp mode in here. So what I would be doing, I'm just going to turn off this automation now. Normally what I'm doing is going through, unless I have a very specific effect in mind. I want to try all of these. I want to go through and try every warp mode and move the knob side to side, side to side, side to side, until I find the coolest or nicest or most beautiful or whatever effect I can find. So you can kind of see what sync is doing here. I don't want to go into explanations of every little nook and cranny because it's just going to take so long, but yeah, you can just watch the waveform and see what's happening. So this is getting a vastly different tone now. I mean, like, this is a different synth if we just leave this here. And you can move between these things, right? Which is what's so cool. So this is like my life for a bit when I'm making the sound. Usually I want something recorded ahead of time so that I don't have to play this every single time, which maybe we should do. Why don't we do that? Let's just record a simple chord progression at, I don't know, a tempo. How about we'll do it hip hop style, 160 double time sort of thing. And okay, and let's play G major 7. The chords are down there at the bottom left of the screen in case anybody wants to see them. G major 7 to A over G to, what is this chord called? F sharp minor 7 to B minor 7. That's a nice one. How about that? This is from a song. What is this? A lot of songs. Someone got a name for this? Yeah. Let's use that though. One of those we'd listen to a lot. Yeah. That rhythm I'm getting from the original song. I'll change it. Yeah, let's check that. That's enough for now. We'll fine tune this later. Tennyson, Aloe Black, a little bit MB feel. Maybe. Let's just. Decent. Oh yeah, that one. That's not Tennyson. That's Zed. Zed and Aloe Black. Yeah, that might be the one. Okay. Yeah, for M&Ms, that's right. Okay, I'm just gonna get all the ends of these quantized as well, just so they're even. And pull these out. I know this is not a MIDI, how to make MIDI chord thing, so I'm just gonna quickly do this for you. Aiden, Marshall, what's up? Playing with Serum, that's what's up. What's up with you? Oh, I got the bass notes. Okay, we're good on that. So having something recorded ahead of time makes your job a lot easier because you don't have to just keep playing the thing over and over and over and over, and you can kind of hear the effect that your changes are having on the sound. So we're going through these warp modes. Let's just do a few more. So usually I'm just going to run through these when I'm making a sound as clicking, twisting, like it, don't like it. Twisting, like it, don't like it. It's pretty cool. So this is acting like a filter in and of itself, removing high frequencies. But we've already got a filter doing that, so don't worry about that. The remaps we're gonna leave alone for now. The rest of these we're gonna leave alone for now. We might talk about them later. So I'm just gonna come in and probably use this guy. And we're gonna have him move with the same, actually let's try a different one. We'll use an envelope that moves much quicker this time. And we're gonna throw him on this thing. So it's giving a kind of attack to our sound now. If I let it be long, ow, ow, and let it be short, like a dry Rhodes, yeah. I've actually got a few I'll show you later that I've tried to emulate Rhodes in here. Now I can choose how much of this effect I want. Demimiki, yo, what's up? Never heard of what? I like music. You don't have Serum? Dude. No, that's okay. I'm sure you got some pretty sick ones. Serum is just like, I don't know. I just love to use it. It's just, for me, so intuitive and so easy to use. It's probably because I've spent 10,000 hours working with it. It's so easy, man. All you gotta do is spend 10,000 hours using the synth, and then you're gonna get it. It's no problem. No, it's actually easier than that, but like, I have spent a lot of time, so it's hard for me to not think that way. But you know, on Splice, you can rent the thing. It's like super cheap. It's like $10 a month or something until you pay it off with no interest or anything. I mean, it just makes sense. Anyway. Oh, a Rhodes. A Rhodes is a type of keyboard, basically. And yeah, there you go. Dry meaning like unaffected. Vital as well. Right, exactly. Yeah, I have not used Vital deep enough to be able to recommend or not recommend, but there's a free version of it, and it's definitely worth it if you want to go that route. Like, I have it, and it looks really cool. I'll have to do a video on it someday. You got my tie, yeah. Okay, so this thing's sounding decent. I was wanting to get the other oscillator involved and as well a noise on here. So why don't we start with the noise? So in Serum, we've got basically 4 oscillators. We've got the 2 main oscillators, which you can select wavetables within, so they can do all the fancy stuff. You have a sub oscillator, which despite the name being sub, you can do it for much more than making subs. You can basically like look at it as a whole nother oscillator for you to use. It just has some limitations. Of course, you can see the amount of knobs on here is like nothing compared to these ones, but I could turn it on and then put it up an octave, for instance. Bring the volume down. And then feed it into the filter. I didn't mention this earlier, but these little buttons here, these lights, this is for oscillator A, B, the noise oscillator, the sub oscillator, and for key tracking. So if I want this to be affected by the filter, I have to put it into the filter. And you do that by grabbing the sub oscillator inside the filter. So now you don't hear the high frequencies anymore because it's being cut off with the thing here, right? So I can bring it way up. And now you can just hear the upper pitches. The point being here, just because it says sub doesn't mean you need to use it as a sub oscillator. You can do a lot with it. I'm not actually going to use it right now, but we'll get to that. So noise. Now this is really cool. The noise oscillator can load in wave files, basically audio files, and play them back and loop them and do all sorts of cool stuff. You can make your own, or you can use the ones that come built in with it. You can use it as a continuous sound that is constantly being played, or as a very short percussive sound. So let's just listen just to the noise oscillator for a sec. It's following the curve of our first envelope, because envelope 1, like most synths, is hard-coded to the volume of all oscillators altogether, the global volume. So whatever this shape is going to determine the volume of all oscillators together. I mean, Vital Basic, I don't know, yeah, right, exactly. I think that's the one. There's like 3 tiers. I don't know, I have no idea what they're called, but there's like a subscription model, a buy outright model, and a basic or a free or something like that. That's the one. So it comes with a whole bunch of built-in effects. Oh, check this out. Here's just a fun little thing we can try. If you grab a percussive effect, like say a kick drum, and so here's a kick. Let's put it on 1 shot for now. And I'm just going to bring this up. Turn this level up. So this is like a tiny little sample of a kick drum. I mean, it's really not great. But if you play it very, very fast, let's find a clean one, and then take off the 1-shot version. It becomes a pitch, right? Because you're playing the sample back so fast that if I slow it way down, you can make a bass out of just this. So if I take an oscillator and I try to tune my noise to my sine wave, I can. There we go. So now I have the sample of a kick drum making me a pitch. So now I can get 4 pitched oscillators, and I could make like a chord out of this if I wanted to. So the thing plays like a major 7th chord or something by tuning 1 to the root, 1 to the 5th, 1 to the 3rd, 1 to the 7th, or something like that. It's kind of cool. And then sometimes you find, oh, we need to key track this too. Now you can like use this as a bass, like send it into the filter. Yeah, it's actually really cool. Anyway, that's a topic for another time. That's not what I was intending on doing with this sound. Back on to, oh my God, back onto this thing. So what I'm going to try to do is find a nice attack for this sound. So check this out. Let's turn this off and let's go find an attack sound. I'm going to go into 1-shot mode, so it just plays through the sample 1 time. I'm going to set the pitch back to its default, and let's just go find a nice little attack. This is already kind of an interesting attack, honestly, but we can find all sorts of stuff. So if we go on these. These are just the built-in ones. Okay, so you get the idea, right? Lots of different stuff in there. But what we want is just some kind of like little click or little something, and we're going to use that as an attack, and then you'll see what I mean. Here's the ones I'm looking for. So, for instance, let's take one of these. Glass lid. So no matter what key I play, it's always going to play the same pitch because I'm not key tracking. As soon as I turn this on, it changes. This can actually be super useful, but as you guys probably know, when you're pitch shifting samples lower and lower, you're skewing the whole harmonic series of the thing, and you don't get the clean sound anymore. You get this kind of like quality, right? As opposed to this. So that's something to keep in mind. However, you can key track within a certain range and still have the sound remain in a nice quality, let's put it. and sound realistic. We'll probably try to do that on one of these patches. I'll turn it off for now. So now if we turn this on, now it sounds like there's a click at the start of every note, right? So I'll play the little thingy in a second, but we've got... oh, my sustain is... sorry. Pretty cool, just that click. Now you just balance the click volume. This is part of my whole philosophy I always talk about of organic realism in synth design, in that all real things, of course, have attack sounds, roughly speaking, the way that they get plucked or bowed or hit or struck or whatever. There's some kind of initial thing that's different from the sustained thing, unless you're playing like a violin or a cello or something, of course, then you can have a very soft attack. But having a kind of attack sound, whether it's a noise oscillator or whether it's something you do with a filter or whatever, can make a huge difference in the perceived playability of the sound, because it feels like something real is being struck or hit, right? It has like an actual audio component to it here, an audio attack. So in this case, I don't know if this is the kind of click I'm looking for. Like, I would probably prefer almost one of these kick drums. Let's find a good one here. Like almost like that. Is that coming through on your end? That click, click, click. Now the only danger you have, this is great for arpeggios and stuff, but when you play it all at once like this, you just get a louder click because you're triggering the click many times. It's all quantized, click, click, click. You're just making a loud click. It's not actually that interesting. If I let the attacks be sloppy, chlang, chlang, right, in that sort of way, then you get the... But if you listen very closely, you'll hear that the machine gunning effect of playing the sample the exact same way every time sounds kind of unreal. I'll try to turn it up so you can really hear it. Right, that doesn't sound like what a real instrument would do. You never get exactly the same attack every time, right? So we want to find ways to basically add variation and randomness into the thing. This random knob means that it's going to start the noise sample at a different place, which is not going to work for us because we need the attack. Like if I turn this up, most of the time we don't hear anything because it's starting the sample like midway through or at the end or whatever. Yeah, Greg, humanize, exactly. We're not going to humanize quite yet on the MIDI side. We're going to first try to get this down, then we'll do the humanizing on the MIDI side, as you'll see in just a sec. So we're back to here, but we might be able to introduce a little bit of randomness. Like remember when we were doing this random phase knob up here, where we're determining where in the waveform it starts, and you start to pull this out, you're adding just a little bit of this yellow area, right? You see that yellow area there? I wonder if I can actually make Serum twice as big, and you guys, or even just like 125. Tell me, I mean, I'll be able to know if it fits on your screen still. Yeah, that's pretty nice, hey? Check that out. Okay. Get it off my face. Hazelman, welcome. How do I match the tempo of my vocal with the music? Well, that's about as unrelated to Serum as it gets, but I can give you a very quick answer to that. You were saying that you have a vocal that you're working with. What you do is you go to the tap tempo down here, or you go to an online website, you search tap tempo, you just listen to your vocal, and you tap your key along with the thing. It will tell you the tempo. You set the tempo in the session, you're succeeding. Hope that helps. So if we look at this little yellow area, that's the area of randomness, meaning we could have the starting place be anywhere within that little yellow area. The same thing happens with this random knob. So if I move this up just a little bit, the point is I'll sometimes have the very pure click where it starts right at the beginning of the waveform, and then I'll have a little bit of space of variation. Sometimes it starts a couple of, like a half cycle off or a quarter cycle off of like where the actual beginning is, and that's a kind of randomness that we can use. So let's listen closely here. I'll turn this one off. I want to turn this up actually as much as I can until I lose the effect. Starting to hear the variation. Sometimes it's dull. Sometimes it's sharp. I know this is super annoying to listen to. So here is sounding pretty good to me. Every time I'm hitting the key, I'm getting a slightly different top end on the click. That's like what a real thing would do, right? You could never replicate it exactly. The next is I want to add some very slight pitch changes to this attack because the pitch of the thing will not always be the same. So let's now try that out. I can right click on anything and say mod source and then allow it to change based on some kind of other controller, all the LFOs, the envelopes, whatever. But there are some controllers that are not present on this screen that you need to go in and grab manually. And that's what we're going to do now. So you can do that either from this menu. So where am I looking? Pitch. From this menu, and I can come down and find these ones. Note on random. Note on random 2. These are two different random value generators that generate a value every time you hit a new note on, and then you can determine the range basically that it's playing within. And that's what we want here, so that every time I hit, it's going to have a random value of the pitch. So it's not always the same pitch every time. So let's just go with this one. I'm going to put it on like an extreme setting first so that you can see what it's doing. Actually, you're going to have to probably go grab it in the matrix. The matrix here is where you can see all of your sources, that is the controllers, the destination, what's being controlled, and how much they're being controlled. So here I have my note on random 1 controlling the noise pitch, and it's going bidirectional right now. If I click this, it changes from monodirectional to bidirectional. So if I just start hitting some notes now, we're getting massive pitch changes. Sometimes it's inaudible, sometimes it's too high, right? So I need to restrain this a lot, right? Like bring this in until I'm just getting very subtle pitch changes. Again, I'm going to bring it up as high as I can before it sounds stupid. Too much. Like this. What's your professional opinion on MIDI in Studio One? I think it's a great synth to learn on, honestly. Serum can be overwhelming if you don't know what you're doing, which I'm trying to help out with here, of course. But MIDI is limited in a way that's nice, in a way that you can create a lot of great sounds, but it's not a wavetable synth, of course, so you can't come in and do all the super fancy stuff. But you can learn synthesis and use it in professional music, no doubt about it. I have some videos where I use only MIDI and only stock Studio One stuff, and you can kind of hear the stuff I'm making with it. I think you can actually achieve great results just with MIDI and the other stock stuff. It's overwhelming, but I think it's worth learning. I think so too, man. Like, it's actually incredibly powerful. If you spend the time to just learn one synth really well, like it could be this, it could be Vital, it could be Omnisphere, it could be Falcon, it could be anything. If you just learn one versatile synth really well, then you can basically make every sound. I mean, there's like outliers that you can't make because it's unique to the special synth you're using, and that's fine. But for most practical music making needs, one decent synth, decent meaning like high-end synth, can do basically everything you're going to need to do, unless you have some very specific stuff you're working on. And so investing the time, if that's of interest to you, is really worth it. As the skills grow, you find yourself wanting more diversity. Exactly, like anything in life, right? You just become so familiar with something that you say, I need something new. I need some novelty in my life. Okay, so now, just to reiterate, the whole point of what we're doing here is to get a more realistic attack on our sound by subtle variations in where the sample is starting, subtle variations in the pitch of the sample. And this is part of this whole overarching philosophy of listening very closely to the way that real things work, real instruments and real mediums, physical objects, basically, when you bang them, hit them, scrape them, drop them, whatever. How does the pitch change when you hit it harder? How does the decay change when you hit soft versus loud, versus you scrape versus you whatever? If you just start paying attention to these things, and probably you all do already to a certain extent, you just incorporate them into your synth design and you end up with synths that sound very real in their unreality. You can get synths that still sound completely synthetic, but they have a quality of believability in them that they could really exist in some world, so to speak. What are the synths that are able to create anything? Well, this one for sure. Massive can do a whole lot. I don't have Massive X, so I can't really speak to it. Falcon is insane, can basically do anything. And then there's a bunch that I haven't used. I've never used Zebra, I've never used Diva, so I don't know if those ones are also capable of doing a bunch of different stuff. Serum also has the ability to do some basic FM synthesis, which we could get into at some point, which is also super cool. But yeah, my main area of expertise is Serum and Omnisphere. And then there's a few others that I'm learning. But like with those two, plus the stock stuff, like I've honestly been able to make a career in composing music for people just based off of knowledge of those things. I don't actually need anything else. Not yet anyway. Okay, so we've got a noise going on here. Let's add it back into the original sound. I'm just going to balance the volume. It's much too loud right now. Make it very, very subtle. It's good, except that sometimes we're getting the very initial click sample, which is a bit annoying. It's getting very, very sharp. I'm gonna leave it for now because I don't want to spend the time to fix it, but it's gonna be fine. Now, if we play this, where they're all quantized, I'm gonna turn off the noise. On. Very subtle difference because everything is quantized right now. So what we're going to do is come in here and humanize, which in this DAW is Control H, and then we can just determine how much humanization we want. In terms of velocity, let's go for like 10% either side, and in terms of note start range, let's go for a little bit early and a little bit late, and we should be so you can start to hear the krum krum. It's still not behaving perfectly. That would be something we can go in and tweak a little bit later, but I'm gonna roughly leave it and get the volume turned down here. Great. Okay. Then the last thing I'm going to do is add last thing in this page I'm going to do is add a second oscillator to add some more tone to the sound. And there's so much we can do with this, but let's take one example. I'm going to come in and use, say, a triangle wave in this case instead of a saw wave. And let's just listen as we go. So right now, it's not being run through the filter. So we're hearing it, just following this volume envelope, but that's all it's doing. So what we need to do is send this guy into the filter as well, or do we? We're going to start by doing that, and then we'll see if we can do something else. Now, we're not going to hear much of a difference because the saw wave already contains basically all the harmonics that are also in the triangle wave. They're in the same octave together, so there's nothing that is, this is not being created from a kick sample, sorry, to name a key. It was, but not the actual tone of the synth anymore, just the attack. Are we supposed to be hearing the drum type fill? The drum type fill. The drum type fill. I don't know what you mean exactly. Oh, the like krr, krr sound. If I turn these off, you'll hear what I mean. They actually need to be humanized a little bit more to get some more spread. Let's do that. That's the sound without the oscillators. So it's a very subtle percussive quality right at the start of the sound. I'll turn up a bit. That's too loud for me though. So it's all these subtle details that make all the difference in my mind anyway. So starting now onto this second oscillator, if we put it up an octave, we'll start to hear it. It's also doesn't have its unison on, so it's right down the center. If you're hearing on headphones or on nice speakers, you'll be able to tell. This one's centered, octave up, and this one is wide. Now, if I spread it out by putting the unison on, a nice sound. But what I was wanting to try, and it might not work out, we're just going to have to see, is leaving it out of the filter and fading it in over time. Now you remember that the envelope 1 is hard-coded to be the volume of the entire synth. So what that means is that this wave is also going to follow this trajectory, but if we want it to fade in, we need to create that shape somewhere else. So instead of using another envelope, this time I'm going to use an LFO and repurpose it. So let's take LFO 2, and I'm going to drag its shape to look like what I want, like this. I'm going to switch it into envelope mode. A trigger mode means the thing starts playing when you hit the key, and then it continuously cycles. We'll see that in a minute. Envelope mode means it triggers when you hit the key, but it only plays through this shape once and then stops. And that was kind of my idea for this. We're just going to have to see, maybe even like this. And what we're going to do is drag this on to the level of this oscillator B. So now this thing's going to flick the level up and back down. Right. And it's going to determine the rate we're doing it at is being determined by this. So what I'm going to do is play these and pull this out a bit. You see what I'm doing here? Almost like side chaining, exactly right. I could get it rhythmic. Except when I'm playing on those offbeats, it's kind of like ruining the effect. I don't actually like the effect overall that much, but you get the idea. I can independently control the volume of this oscillator within reason by setting up a new LFO or envelope to control it independently of the other things. That's kind of the point. Let's bring this over and see if we can manipulate it in a different way. So now it's an attack. And the rest is low octave. Gonna let it be a bit longer. I actually kind of like that. I might leave it. Do you do that process more often than sidechaining another triggering track? No, I'm basically always old school sidechaining myself in all of my tracks. Using a trigger track, so to speak, with a drum. Shipley, yo, you making a song or just messing around? I'm hoping to make a bit of a song. I don't know if we're actually gonna get there or not. Right now I'm just going through some synth basics on Serum, and then we'll see if we get there. Now, of course, the magic ingredient of reverb is not on here right now, right? As soon as you put reverb on anything, it's just better. So we're gonna get there soon, but you know, we're just trying to tone shape at the moment. A rock song made with Serum. That's probably what's gonna happen on Sunday, actually. Okay. So then I would start going through the same process of here, grabbing all the warp modes, trying them out, seeing what can be done, you know, if it's really worth our time. It's kind of interesting. Starts to get into a different genre of music now. I actually like it basic right now. The very sharp click on the start of this thing is like ruining it for me, unfortunately. I'm gonna have to leave it off for now. Sounds like an Afrobeat thing. Hey, you're totally right. We should probably do an Afrobeat thing with this. Hey? That's a good idea. I don't have any Serum packs available, no, not yet. But the company that I worked for has many. They're called Unison. Unison is the company that I was making Serum presets for some years ago now, and I have them all here, the ones that I did, but you can buy them on their website. If you buy those ones, you can know that I made them, if that's of interest to you. Hopefully I'll have some packs out soon. We'll see. Okay, so this is sounding pretty good. The idea being that I'm going to use this entire first page to the nth degree. I mean, really, I'm not pushing it that hard right now before I start getting into here and messing even further, unless this is essential from the beginning. So now let's start getting this to be a bit more interesting, meaning velocity sensitive. So we're going to say my velocity is in here. Where is that? Velo. My velo is going to control my global amplifier, and it's going to control it in a bidirectional way, meaning louder and quieter. And now I can play it like a real keyboard, where soft ones are quiet and hard ones are loud. And I can also control the filter with that, so that the soft velocity also makes the thing darker. We've talked about this a little bit before in another tutorial too. So that when I hit it really hard, it's at full, which is not at all what I want. I actually want it to, when I'm hitting it at its hardest, to be just above where it's currently set. So I'm going to pull this way down, and then I'm going to bring this down to about here. Now, if I play soft, we're just going to hear, aha, we're going to have to deal with that now. We're getting, let me turn the second oscillator off to explain what I'm doing. B-Space, hello, welcome. So now if I hit soft, the sound is very dark. But if I hit harder, it gets brighter. Almost spitty at a certain point there. Now, when I turn this on, it's not being affected. Right, you still hear it even at the loud, the soft volume, soft velocity. So we have to do this independently because this is not running through the filter. So when this filter is getting turned down, it's not affecting this. So what we do is we say, gotta head out, keep it up, Max. I'm sure we'll see Konyi Serum synth patches one day. Thanks, Greg. I appreciate the support. Hope it was enjoyable for you. We're gonna use velocity to also control, and we're gonna have to see how this works. I wonder if this is gonna actually work out for us, to control the, yes. Okay, this is gonna be cool. So we know that this shape here is controlling the volume of this oscillator. I'm gonna turn this one off for a minute. So this is a picture of the volume over time. Its volume is also being controlled by the velocity. When I hit soft, it's quiet. When I hit hard, it's loud. What I want is that the softer I hit, it's gonna exponentially get quieter, like it's gonna get quieter real fast. And so the way I'm going to control that is to say that since this LFO is controlling the volume, what I want logically is that when I hit hard, it allows it to go to the full peak of this blue line. And when I hit soft, it doesn't go that high. The way we do that is come into the matrix and we see what's controlling it. It says LFO2 is controlling oscillator B volume. If I then say an auxiliary source, a secondary source is velocity, what this means is that LFO2 controls oscillator B's volume in proportion to the velocity. So when I hit real soft, now we hear nothing at all. And when I start, you know, going louder, it starts to appear again. So now we might get the desired effect. So when I hit soft, it all sounds dark. And only when I start to hit hard, right, does the new synth actually start to spring out. That's the cool thing. Could you do a vital tutorial one day? Can't afford Serum. Yeah, of course. I need to learn it first. I haven't actually used it that much myself, but I know it's super cool and people are really digging it, so I would like to do it. I'm going to turn up the release on my sound a bit so it's not quite so sharp when I cut it off. But it's not like this. I want it like that. I'll bring this back down. Okie dokie. So this is all sounding pretty good to me. a couple of last things that you might want to know, just Serum stuff. One is that the drive knob here is very cool, and if you push it hard, sorry if that got super loud for you, it has a kind of analog distortion that happens to it. So you can distort basses this way, or any lead synths or whatever you need to distort. You can get a layer of distortion happening already just using the drive knob, but you notice that it gets really loud. So in order to combat that, what you can do is just click this and it turns from mix into level. And now instead of this being a mix knob, it becomes a volume knob. And I can put this all the way up and bring this down to control the level that's coming out of the filter instead of this dominating the volume. So this knob has two possibilities. That's really important to know. So in this case, I don't think I want any drive on this sound, but we're going to leave it like this. So one thing I can already tell that I'm going to want is the ability to sometimes have the quick attack and sometimes have the soft attack. And so what we're going to do is use a macro. And this is one of the benefits of using Serum versus, say, MIDI, the built-in synth for Studio One, is that the macro allows you to control multiple parameters at once with a single knob in a kind of secondary way, which is really cool. So what we're going to say, we're going to use a very simple thing we're going to do here. We're just going to say, this macro knob is going to control this attack. And so now when I twist it up, I get a completely different vibe. Right? I don't want it to be that much. So what I'm going to do is leave this at full, come down here and bring this down until it matches the maximum I'm ever going to want it. Like say that. Now I have a range, instant to this. But now you notice that we're hearing this other guy. He's not being affected, or not in the way we want him to. So we're going to have to somehow deal with him as well. And the way we deal with you probably will be, I wonder if we can do, this is going to be interesting. I've never tried this before. Let's see. Put this on the delay. Oh, it's not even going to let us do it, hey? Okay, that's interesting. You can't modulate that. Okay, so we need to find a secondary way to control this to prevent this from ringing out too early. And I'm wondering what the best way to do that is. It's not coming to me right now. We'll figure it out. But let's move on. So I'm into the effects section. You might know within Serum you have all this cool stuff happening, and then you have an entire other section. And the entire other section is made of all these effects that you can stack and reorder in any way you want, kind of like an effects chain inside of your DAW, right? You could just put them in many orders. There's a lot of stuff to be done here. Of course, I can't cover it all right now, but just suffice it to say, we have some important stuff like the distortion unit. You have a phaser, a flanger, a chorus, a delay, of course, all that stuff. You have a compressor, which works as a regular compressor, but also will work as a kind of OTT, which is made by the same guy, by the way. Steve Duda made OTT and he made Serum, so that now it sounds like this. This is a multi-band compressor that's basically smashing frequency bands and then evening their volume out. So instead of this, we're getting this, which is also awesome, actually. For a lot of electronic genres, this thing just is like the magic pill. You just put this on and then the thing just sounds way better, especially if you're making basses. And once you learn to use it creatively, you can turn it on to begin with and you mix into it. So before you even start making your patch, you switch this into multiband mode, put it on, and then you start working with things. Knowing you're going to go into it allows you to work with it in that way. Honestly though, like, this sounds great to me. I probably want to even keep this. The issue is that it's going to basically nullify all of the velocity sensitivity stuff that I was doing, because it's smashing it so hard, the compressor's working so hard that it's basically flattening the volume changes that my velocity was making. So we're going to set up a new macro. So this macro is called attack, and then this macro is going to control the compressor being on or not. So I just pull this down, and I'm going to control the mix knob with this, and we're going to call it smash. And now when it's off and when it's on. I'm just going to try to balance these volumes a little bit. That's pretty good like that. Right. So now we have two modes I can switch between. This is very basic macro usage. You can assign these macros to like 12 parameters. So like when you twist the thing, everything changes and you get a completely different sound, which is actually really cool for versatility's sake. So you can just use one instrument and make massive switches in the middle of a song without having to open a new instance of Serum. We'll see if we get to something like that. For now, this is cool. Okay. And let's say that, now you notice when there's with this compressor on, we get a very strong click at the start. It's okay, but we could also say that when we turn the smash knob up, we also turn the attack up. Now we get this choop 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 sound instead, which is actually fantastic. So when it's down, we have regular attack and regular tone, and when you bring it up, both things change. Sounds kind of funny with with these things though. Okay, let's put a reverb on here. I'm going to turn the reverb to full mix so that I'm hearing pure reverb. I'm just going to shape it in this mode for a second. I'm removing low end. And I'm going to see what the high end sounds like. Bring the mix back. And start cutting the highs out. Hari, hello, welcome. This kind of dark reverb sounds nice here. Here's dry. Oftentimes when you're using reverbs that are not like super high end, like this one, you can use tricks to make them sound better, basically, by shaping the frequency spectrum in certain ways, cutting high frequencies out, not sending percussive elements into them, doing things with the decay and the size where you can balance out things like make them unequal, where the decay is huge but the size is small, or vice versa. There's a lot of tricks that you can use to smooth out bad reverbs to be actually better. And this is sounding pretty decent to me right now. What if we bring a little bit of this in? It's like phasing with itself. Yeah, I'm not a fan. Okay. I don't really need much else on this sound for now, so let's just get a drum beat in here for these chords, and then we'll make a bass sound. For my drums, I'm just going to use addictive drums, so we don't have to go through and like pick samples and whatever. Let's enable this. I liked the idea of the Afrobeats thing. You might want to try that out. I mean, like, I'm like the furthest person from that, but you know, I actually love the genre. Okay, so this is getting no input. Do-do, do-do. If you guys don't know about addictive drums, it's time to know. So let's grab, Anahit, welcome. Let's grab a session percussion kit. I think that could be pretty cool, actually. It's not bad. Okay, I like this. Yeah, let's try that. I'm working at a completely different tempo. Oh God, this is tripping me out. Let's get the beat down first. Yeah. Not quite, but decent. Let's get... here, and here. And this is going to be here. Let's get all these the same length. I like that. Nice. Okay. These chords, rhythm is probably going to sound really weird with this now. Okay. This is the last vibe I was actually intending to go for initially. It might actually work out. Okay. Well, I wonder what happens if we just put these on quarters. I don't mind that, actually. Gives it a little bit more structure. Okay, so now we can move on to our bass. Like a drum and bass kind of drum and bass Afrobeats vibe. So let's get this bass. We're going to initialize this again, and we're going to use FM to make this bass. So FM is a form of synthesis that is different than I've actually ever talked about on the channel before. And give me 1 second here. It's actually like hella hot in this room. So I'm just going to open the door. Okay, and I'm in orange, yeah, so you know. Okay, so this is gonna be fun. Okay, we'll use FM to make this bass. Quickly, FM is frequency modulation. So the frequency of one sound is being modulated by the frequency of another sound. Its frequency meaning its pitch. So if we turn on oscillator A and B, and then we say down here in the warp mode, we can say we want FM, frequency modulation, from A. So A's oscillator is going to modulate the frequency of B. And so when we turn this up, let's turn this pitch down. If we turn this up, let's make it a higher pitch. Now bring this octave down. As you can hear, it's actually happening. The pitch of this synth is being modulated by the frequency of this synth. So as I turn the frequency up, the pitch gets changed faster and faster, and you end up with a cool tone. So I'm like pitched way down right now. So we're going to use this kind of thing as our tone. And then we're going to send it through the filter, taking off both of them. We're going to put the drive on to distort it, turn the level down. Make it monophonic. Turn our attack up. Now we've got a real thick bass. Let's get this. That's nice. Okay, so hopefully this is making sense. This one is modulating this one. That's creating the tone. We're then removing high frequencies from the tone, and we're shaping the volume using this envelope here. I'm going to have the frequencies be shaped by this as well, just like we did in the keys sound. Just a little bit. I'm going to turn this down again. Playing with our resonance knob, we can get some little bit of wow in there. I don't know if we want that. Ow, ow, ow. Maybe some key tracking in this case. And we're going to use the trick that I did in the Mai Tai video to create some impact to the sound, where all you do is take an envelope, which is going to control pitch, and you pitch it really strongly. So we're going to say LFO2 in envelope mode, running at a pretty fast frequency. This shape is going to control the pitch of both oscillators together. We're going to do that in the matrix. We're just going to say that we take LFO2 to control the global master tune, which is the pitch. And then we say how much? About like this. Okay, Thomas, great to have you here. Have a good night. Now, if I slow this down, you can hear I'm pitch shifting. But speed it up, and it starts to just have like a knocking quality at the beginning of the sound. That's what we're going for. And this is basically going to be our bass. Basically our bass. And then let's just see if we can a little bit of dimension to make it sound wider. Maybe a bit more distortion. We'll see. Okay, now let's try to get something with this. I'll start with that bass was like crazy loud for you guys. There we go. Okay, let's get that one down. Okay, so now we can start to shape it a little bit more that I've got the line down. Let's get this onto eighths. Okay, let's get the volume of this down and we're going to make it darker. So pulse this another one here. Doo-doom, doo-doom, doo-doo-doom, doo-doom. Doom, doom, doo-doo-doom, doo-doom, doom, doom, doo, doo-doo-doom. Something's clipping in this sound. Might be this one. I learned sound design through having to learn it for a job. So I just watched tons of tutorials, read the manual, experimented a lot. I would open two Serums like this, have this one open this one, find a good sound in here, copy it in here, and then over and over again, copy my favorite sounds back and forth. From there, there's a lot of ear training, just listening to sounds and trying to reverse engineer them. What kind of waveform are you hearing? What kind of decay? What kind of filter movement? It's kind of a tough thing to prescribe exactly how to learn it because I don't know the kind of music you want to make. But it's just a lot of experience, like with anything, right? You have to use it a lot, and you have to really want to learn it because it takes time. It's not like, unfortunately, it's not super simple. Basic sounds are super simple, but I can recommend the app called Syntorial. I think, talk about that on a previous stream if you want to check that out. That's a great way to learn, actually. I highly recommend it. Give me 1 second. I'm going to just close this door again. Okay. Yeah, so I learned just because people were paying me to learn, and I had to do it over and over and over and over and over and over and over. And because I was getting paid, I wanted to do it really well. So I spent a lot of time researching, a lot of time reading and trying to understand. So I did a lot of reading on old articles about synthesis, not about Serum in general, but about synths and creating particular sounds, creating famous sounds. eventually you just get an ear for it. And Sensorial is great in trying to train your ear to recognize different waveform types, different filter movements, different everything. So check that out. I think they even have a Serum version now. My groove sense is not happy with what I'm hearing here. I wonder. Yeah, no problem. Yeah, the double time thing is not really like doing it for me at the moment. Give me 1 sec here to... We're just going to try a slightly different thing. What does this sound like? Just at a slow tempo. Not what I'm looking for. I've gotten mine ever since that word Afrobeat. I said, I want to play a beat like that. So... let's try that. Uh, 16s. Yeah. Okay. Okay, and let's just duplicate this guy. What to do in the global section, I will show you right now. By right now, I mean in 1 minute. No, I haven't yet talked about it, so it's good. We should. Okay. Hunter, yo, welcome. Okay, so I like this beat a lot better than that double time thing I had going on before. Sorry, I know I'm supposed to be talking about Serum, but I'm so obsessed with getting good grooves that if it's not feeling right, I just have to get rid of it. And then we're gonna let's just try this. Hey, what if we just like straight up bring this in double time? Yeah, great. What if we bring this in double time? I can't imagine that's gonna work, but let's give it a shot. Pretty cool, but maybe too busy. Let's keep it for later. The global section. So if we're looking at this bass, In the global section, you've got a bunch of stuff. Of course, you've just got your regular like options for how you want this thing to behave in general. But over here, you have some interesting things. You have these chaos knobs or chaos generators. These are basically spitting out, it's not actually random, but random-ish values constantly that you can assign to things. So you could assign this to, for instance, like if you're going for like a lo-fi thing, you would take a chaos oscillator and assign it to the pitch, and then you could very subtly wiggle the pitch in a kind of constant random motion. And so you have two of them, so you can move two different parameters simultaneously, but they don't move in the same way, right? One is wiggling like this, and the other one's wiggling like this, right? But in some different randomness. That's what these chaos things do. Down here, hello, Prashun, welcome. Down here, you have, basically things that are affecting the unison knobs on the main page. So when you turn these up to have more than a single instance of themselves, like have unison, as they call it, 7 times unison, 10 times unison. I'm not sure if you saw that part of the video. This basically controls what happens, how big the detune range is, so 2 semitones, how wide the panning is, how much it affects the warp control, how much it affects the wavetable position control. All of this stuff has to do with how unison behaves. So this is for creating randomness. This is for controlling unison. This is for just selecting how you want the whole plugin to behave. And then over here is basically like you can either turn on and off oscillators altogether. This is pitch tracking, sorry. So that means that when I hit different pitches, it's too low so you can't even tell. It's always going to make the same pitch no matter what I hit. That can be used actually, it's kind of interesting. But over here is your quality setting. So normally I'm running on 2 times, 4 times. I mean, Serum is already like a CPU destroyer, right? So if you're like super beefy and you want like the best sound quality because whatever, then you go for 4 times, but it's actually not that important. You can get away with 2. You probably even get away with draft on a lot of sounds, honestly. Okay. Can we get this to be shorter and punchier? You got it. Okay, cool. Decent. How do I get the playback bar to go back where it started playing? This is like the holy grail of Studio One. You go up here, you go transport, options, return to start on stop. By holy grail, I mean other DAWs do this all the time, and I had to find out how to do this, but this is the one that does it. You can also enable a play start marker, which gives you this little green thing, and you can drag it around, and then it will always play from that place. That's also another way to work with it. That's the way one of my old DAWs used to do it, Digital Performer, but I prefer just having return to start on stop. So wherever you start it and you stop it, just goes back. This is like gonna change your life instantaneously. Okay, let's get this going. Okay. Let's get a quick pluck going on before we end this first part of the stream series. So we're going to go back to the starting point, and this time let's take a wavetable, because why not? Let's go for an analog table, maybe. Ugh. Disgusting. It's kind of cool, actually. None of these are making me happy. Let's get the pluck going on first. Let's bring this down, make it super plucky and short. Get the filter involved. Doing the same thing. Actually, no. Let's get a second one, even shorter, and it will do the filter. It's kind of cool. So let's try to also control this. And then also, so this envelope 1 is controlling the volume and it's controlling the position of the wavetable simultaneously. Envelope 2 is controlling the movement of the filter. And then we're also going to say that the position of this wavetable knob is also going to be moved by randomness. So every time I hit the note, it will be in a different place. And I need to control that in the matrix view here. I only want it to move a little bit in its random function though, like this maybe. So it's never the same twice. Now we'll bend it or something. And we'll say the exact same thing here. This is going to be controlled by note on random 2. So it's not the same random that's controlling the other one. And it's going to also move a little bit to get more variation. So like a real percussive thing, right? It never hits the same way twice. We'll get a knob that allows us to make it longer. Oop, not the attack, but the decay. And we'll simultaneously make the filter move longer. Oops. Sounding pretty good. Let's get hyper on there because it's just cool. Let's get some chorus. All right, I like it already. Let's get a delay. You want the secret to delay? It's called quarter on one side, eighth note dotted on the other side. Filtered. Run that through a reverb. Profit. Let's see what we can do with this as it is. start in the middle of the loop. Code, welcome. I'll answer in just a second. I'm going to humanize this a bit just so it's less perfect. Okay, that's cool. V code, Serum is used for sound design. Yes, that's right. It's different from MIDI. It's just more advanced. That's all. It has more features. It can do more things, more sounds. It's got a whole lot of stuff in it. Primarily, it's a wavetable synth, meaning that you can run through a bunch of different wavetables, like a different waveforms, and you can oscillate between them very quickly. I've covered a lot of stuff earlier in this session, so you might want to go back and check it out. But yeah, it's mainly, it can do sort of the same stuff. It just can do more stuff and do it at a higher quality. The pluck sounds good, thanks. Okay, let's just, an ARP next. Ooh, sounds kind of good. I want to get the mix hyped up a little bit. It's a little bit lackluster to me at the moment, so give me 1 sec to grab my, we'll do a bit of side chaining. So if we, why is that there? We enable this guy, and then we say, bring in the side chain from Addictive Drums, and we're going to filter it to be just the kick. You need to learn those skills unless you're going to pay somebody else to do them, basically. That's the thing. Most of us learned to mix because we wanted to get into music. Like, I wanted to get into music production just to record my own music. But then I had to learn how to mix and master because I wasn't going to pay somebody to do it. So if you got money to pay people, then that makes it easy. If not, you kind of have to learn, unfortunately. Going to quickly get some more compression going on in the mix here. Give me 1 sec. It takes a while, but it's all dependent on how much you practice, meaning how much music you make. If you make music every day and you do your best, you really strive to make it sound pro and clean and powerful, it will come. But it does take a long time because there's many, many things to learn in music production, right? You have to learn the musical side of things. You have to learn how to use the application. Then you have to learn how to mix, which is its own art form altogether, which is not like writing notes and rhythms. It's its own thing. So there's a lot that goes on, honestly. So I wouldn't expect it would take you, you're not going to be at a pro level in 1 year, put it that way. I mean, maybe, I don't know. I don't know who you are. Maybe, I'll put it that way. I was not at a pro level in a year. That's for sure. Okay, let's get an ARP in there. So let me just show another Serum. And for this ARP, let's go for starting point. It's going to be another sort of plucky sound, but this time let's use this sound is very cool. It's called bottle blow. So let's try to run through this sound real quick. So if we do this, set our main envelope to control this, the other way around actually. Sounds kind of physical, right? It's pretty cool. Is there any easy way to make an ARP rather than writing through mouse and piano rolls? I have a hard time playing piano. Yeah, for sure. I was going to do it that way, but I'll show you the other way too. Let's add a triangle wave on top of here, an octave up. Filter it maybe. That's pretty cool. Let's get a really weird reverb on it. Not weird, but a small one. So it has a... So it sounds like it's in a small little room there. What do you think about producing music for games? Is it a good niche to take as a part-time career? I don't know about part-time. I don't know. I would suggest that you want to make it your life. You know, if you want to make music for games or for any professional application, and like unless it's just like kind of corporate music, you really want to like invest yourself fully in it, because then you will make great music. And if you make great music, people will hire you. That's basically the way it goes. If you keep it on the side and you don't really focus your life on it, then you're not going to improve to the point where people are going to want your music. That's the issue. Okay. So then let's do 8th and 16th. 8th and 16th. Let's do... Actually, it looks like this is right. You used a Hackintosh white, right? Yes, I did. For many years. I changed because I couldn't find a Mac that fit my needs other than a Mac Pro, and it was way too expensive, so I had to switch. S runs better on Windows? I don't know. I think it's about the same. I never had much issue with it, honestly, on Mac. I know other people do, so if you're one of them, I'm sorry to hear that. I don't really know why that is. Some people have a problem with it. For me, it was always just fine. I like using Mac better, honestly. Okay, so just to answer your question there, Hari, if I duplicate my chord track, I'm going to actually duplicate my chord track. So I'm going to delete my, I won't even delete my bass notes. I'll just put my bass notes in the same octave as the, whatever, rest of the notes, the upper voices. Then within Studio One, and of course all DAWs will have this, you can come into the in here in Instruments, go Note Effects, Arpeggiator, and just throw that straight on the thing, like this. And now this Arpeggiator is going to take the chords that are being played. In fact, I should quantize them just to make it work a bit better. And it will arpeggiate them for you. You can set the rate, the shape, straight up, up and down, random. You can put gates on it. Pretty cool, hey? So, I mean, we could just give it a shot on like 16ths and just see if it works out. I mean, maybe it will. Pretty cool. I don't quite like the randomness of it. I would have wanted to control a bit more. You can control it more by creating like these patterns. Right, it's pretty cool. So the other way is you just grab the chords like this, and then you can just like literally build your own arp out of these chords. Then I would probably delete these. You can expect it. You already know what's coming. Oops. Yeah, you definitely got to know how to produce beats if you're making beat-based music, for sure. I think so. And making beats is one of the most fun parts, man. That's where it's at. I mean, it's all fun. It's actually kind of cool. But I'm thinking about a call and response thing. Like now we've got this guy going, and we need another sound. So I'm just going to grab one more Serum. And we'll just take a sound I've made before so I don't have to remake a new sound again. And let's go into, I don't know, the Chill Out collection, why not? And let's grab another pluck. So these are sounds I made years ago. This one might actually do the trick. To record exactly. I did a million ideas there. Let's just grab one. What alternative would you advise for Serum? I would, you can rent it on Splice. If you go to splice.com, it's $10 a month. That's a good way to go. Otherwise, get Vital. Just search Vital Synth. And there's a free version of Vital that can do basically all the same stuff that Serum can do. Okay, I like the second half better. Let's grab that. Try a cool trick with this sound where you basically, can we do it with this? Let's see if we can do it. I guess it's kind of already doing it, honestly. Let's see if we can try to do it even stronger. And I kind of sidechain it against itself in a certain way. I'm glad, Nick. That's nice. So now I'm just separating the reverb from the sound a bit more. So anyway, a couple of interesting points here would be the contrasting reverbs. You know, we have like some long, subtle, dark reverbs, and then we have this real short room reverb that's being played on the arps versus this one. This one is filling space. The reverb is filling space in high frequencies. All right, it's creating a kind of ambience and atmosphere. This one is separating the sound from everything else in the mix. It's the only thing that has that kind of reverb on it. The bass has no reverb, of course. Doesn't need it in this case. These have a big reverb as well. Big-ish, big and dark. So these ones go together. Interesting. So yeah, that's all good. I think I'm over time already. Again, I didn't really accomplish everything I wanted to, as always, but you know, it's just how it goes. Oh yeah, and I got this ARP still on here, right? I actually don't want that. So what's it gonna do if to explain the differences between Serum and something like Omnisphere? I believe Omni's a Rompler. Yes, that's right. You can change parameters but not design your own sounds. You can absolutely design your own sounds. The difference between Omni and Serum is that Omnisphere allows you to use full-on recorded sound sources. So they'll have like recordings of whatever, drums or metal strings being plucked, or a piano that's on fire being hit, or hammers or salt shakers or whatever. There could be tonal aspects, there could be percussive aspects, and you can blend full synth engine like Serum with full Rompler capacity using all the samples basically. So you're blending, making hybrid sounds. That's the way I look at Omnisphere. I look at Omnisphere as a hybrid sound creator. If I want something that sounds half organic and half synthetic, basically, that's what I'm going to use. And if I want purely synthetic, I'm going to use Serum. Great. Okay, guys, this has been a blast. Working through Serum, obviously, it's one of my favorite things, and happy to chat about it with all of you. I'll continue it probably next week, next Tuesday, not Wednesday, but Tuesday at 7:30 p.m. Pacific time. Yeah, I'm just going to probably go into more deep dive and some more interesting aspects. There's like whole areas we didn't even open, right? That like I work in all the time. I was just trying to do something pretty quick there, but like it has some deep features that I'd like to explore with you guys as well. That's a bit more on the nerdy side, but like that's where you get the good stuff. That's my feeling anyway. Okay, I'm just going to play you guys something on our way out here. Hey, no problem, Hari. It's great to have you here. I'm just going to play you a track that I did for my Discord weekly challenge last week. If you join the Discord, the link is in the description. There's a weekly challenge going on where we have a production-related challenge. And last week we did one where I gave a bunch of samples that we had to work with. And then you could only use those samples and nothing else other than you could process them through whatever effects you like. So I created a track live. You can find it on my channel if you just go to my YouTube channel with a Discord symbol there. I'll just play you, if I can find them, these samples that we had to use. Here they are.
It's lovely. What is it?
That was the set of samples. So on the stream, I ended up creating this piece of music using only those samples and nothing else. And I'll just play through that one time because it might be of interest to you guys if you want to check that out as well. Hopefully it's not too loud compared to where we just were. Let me just bring the volume down a little bit because you guys might not be used to how this is going to be. Here it comes. Anyway, so that was on the last one. And if you guys want to check it out, the stream is all there. I'm going to be back on Sunday at 10 a.m. Pacific time, where I'm going to make my next challenge entry, which is making a rock song with no guitars and no acoustic drums. Basically, that's the challenge. So I'm going to be here on Sunday morning, my time, working on that. Otherwise, I hope you guys have a great rest of your week, great rest of your day, wherever you are. I appreciate you being with me and hanging out, talking about Serum, and I'll be back next week with some more. So yeah, thanks everybody. Talk to you soon.